after my wife, Clara, ran out in the middle of the night to buy underwear for her quote-unquote best friend, Ethan, I signed the transfer order of the hospital. I left a signed copy of the divorce papers on the table and left for a 2-year medical mission in Eastern Europe. 2 years later, just as I was about to return home, Clara flew halfway across the world, Ethan in tow. Still mad after 2 years, Leo? Ethan and I are just friends. If something was going to happen, it would have happened by now. When it was 2:00 a.m., I had just stepped out of an 8-hour surgery on a cerebral aneurysm, and my phone was vibrating itself off the hook in my locker. I finally answered. It was a police officer from the 17th precinct, his voice all business. Am I speaking with Mr. Leo Vance? Your wife, Miss Clara Vance, is currently at our precinct. We need you to come down. My brain was still numb from hours of intense focus. What happened to her? She was involved in a dispute. Nothing serious, but we need you to come and sort it out. I pinched the bridge of my nose, a wave of exhaustion washing over me as I changed out of my scrubs. Ethan, I didn't even have to guess. That name had been a thorn in my marriage for 3 solid years. When I drove over and walked into the precinct, I saw the familiar trio. Clara was sitting on a bench next to her inseparable best friend, Ethan. Across from them, a middle-aged woman who looked like a shop owner was ranting. For a pair of boxer briefs? In the middle of the night? You shove me for a pair of boxer briefs? Officer, you tell me if that's right. I stopped in my tracks. My eyes landed on the shopping bag at Clara's feet. The logo of a high-end men's underwear brand burned into my retinas. An officer saw me and looked relieved. Mr. Vance? Good, you're here. Maybe you can talk some sense into your wife. I ignored Clara and walked over to the shop owner. Hello, I'm her husband. Can you please tell me exactly what happened? Seeing that I was at least reasonable, the woman's anger subsided a bit. You be the judge. I was closing up for the night. They rush in, saying they need to buy underwear for this gentleman, she said, pointing at Ethan. I told them I was closing and to come back tomorrow. But your wife, she says this guy just got back from a trip, has nothing clean to wear, and absolutely had to have a new pair tonight. She wouldn't let it go. We argued. Things got heated, and next thing you know, she's knocking over a display rack and shoving me. Ethan was hunched over, looking like the victim of a great injustice. He muttered to Clara, Clara, maybe we should just drop it. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have called you out so late. Like clockwork, Clara's maternal instincts flared up. She glared at the shop owner. That's a lie. When did I push you? You lost your balance. Then she turned to me, her tone laced with its usual entitlement. Leo, you're here. Perfect. Help me explain this to them. Ethan and I have a purely platonic friendship. He's here on a last-minute business trip, and he thinks hotel underwear is gross. What's the big deal with me, as his friend, helping him buy a pair in an emergency? What's the big deal? She'd asked me that question 1,000 times over the past 3 years. When Ethan was heartbroken, she could leave me at 3 a.m. with a 102-degree fever to go drinking with him. When Ethan wanted to see a concert, she could take the tickets I had spent hours in a virtual queue to buy and just hand them over to him. When Ethan said his new apartment needed a bit of mood lighting, she could box up the lamp I bought her for our anniversary and ship it to him. Every single time I objected, she'd shut me down with the same line. Ethan and I are just friends. If something was going to happen, it would have by now. Leo, can't you be a little more generous? I looked at her, then at the perpetually innocent and pitiable Ethan by her side. A profound wave of nausea and fatigue churned in my stomach. I didn't argue. I pulled my wallet out of my pocket and turned to the shop owner. Ma'am, I'll compensate you for all the damages, including your distress. Just tell me what you think is fair. The owner was taken aback, clearly not expecting this reaction. Clara shot up. Leo, what are you doing? Why should we pay? It wasn't my fault. I ignored her. In the end, I paid the woman $300, and she agreed not to press charges. As we walked out of the precinct, Ethan immediately sidled up to me, an earnest apology on his face. Leo, man, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to cause all this trouble for you and Clara. I never thought. I looked at him, and to my own surprise, smiled. Don't worry about it. He seemed stunned that I was so easygoing, and his expression froze. I turned to Clara. Her face was still flushed with indignation. Leo, what was that all about back there? You think I was in the wrong, don't you? No, I said calmly. It's late. I'll take you home. I drove them to the hotel where Ethan was staying. Clara naturally started to follow Ethan toward the elevators. I'm just going to help him get settled. Wait for me. I'll be right down. Don't bother, I said, stopping her. This is as far as I go. She turned, a look of surprise on her face. My gaze went past her to the men's underwear bag in her hand. You shouldn't go home tonight, I said. Stay here. Take good care of your friend. Without waiting to see the color drain from her face, I put the car in drive and hit the gas. In the rearview mirror, her and Ethan's figure shrank, then disappeared into the night. I knew that something else had disappeared along with them. Returning to the place I called home, I wasn't met with warmth, but with the lingering scent of another man. A man's jacket, not mine, was tossed on the living room sofa. On the coffee table sat a half-empty glass of whiskey and a pack of the brand of cigarettes Ethan always smoked. This hadn't been just my home for a long time. I walked into my study. A document lay waiting on the desk. Assignment of Dr. Leo Vance to the Senior Medical Specialist Aid Project in Eastern Europe. It was the hospital's most important international project of the year, a 2-year deployment to a conflict-ridden region with a collapsed healthcare system. My mission was to establish and lead a critical care team. The risks were extreme, the responsibilities immense. My department chief had spoken to me about it several times, but had been hesitant to nominate me, knowing I was a newlywed. I had been hesitant too, but now my mind was crystal clear. I picked up a pen and, in the I accept box at the bottom of the form, I signed my name. My handwriting was steady, without a trace of a tremor. Next, I opened a drawer and took out 2 copies of a document I had drafted months ago, a divorce agreement. I signed both, placing one copy in the most conspicuous spot in the living room, right next to the whiskey glass. The division of assets was simple. The condo, which I had paid for in full before the marriage, was mine. The car was hers. Our savings would be split 50-50. I didn't even bother to calculate how much of our joint savings she had already spent on gifts for Ethan. By the time I was done, the sky was beginning to lighten. I didn't go back to the bedroom. I couldn't stand the thought of what smells might linger on those sheets. I spent the night on the couch in my study. The next morning, I grabbed the suitcase I already had packed, said goodbye to no one, and went straight to the airport. I turned off my phone. I logged out of all my messaging apps. The last 3 years have been a relentless, feverish nightmare. The moment I boarded the plane, I felt like I was finally pulling my own plug. I needed to go somewhere no one knew me, just to breathe some fresh air. As the plane took off, I watched the city shrink below me, feeling an immense sense of peace. Goodbye, Clara. No, good riddance. 2 years is enough time to change a lot of things. During my 700-plus days in Europe, I was in a constant race against death. The high-intensity work and extreme conditions gave me a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. Here, there were no best friends, no endless arguments, no suffocating atmosphere of distrust. My world was reduced to the scalpel, the beep of monitors, and the tears of a family when a patient pulled through. The team I led managed to decrease the critical care mortality rate in our region by 30%. A few groundbreaking, long-distance remote surgeries I performed earned my name some recognition in the international cardiothoracic community. Before the project ended, the hospital administration in Chicago emailed me about my plans upon returning. With my new credentials, I could have my pick of any top hospital in the country. I chose a leading cardiac center in Boston. They offered me my own surgical team and a position as a director of surgery. Everything was moving in the right direction. For 2 years, I had deliberately cut off all contact with my past. Clara must have received the final divorce decree from the court by now. We were legally strangers. Occasionally, I grabbed coffee with a fellow doctor, Evelyn Reed. She was the lead anesthesiologist on my team, a sharp, clear-headed, and engaging woman. She knew I was divorced, but never pried. We had the kind of unspoken understanding and respect that comes with maturity. Leo, what's the plan when you get back to the States? Evelyn asked, walking over with a glass of wine at the project's farewell dinner. Sleep for 3 straight days, I joked. Then report for duty at the new job. Not going to take a real vacation? Reward yourself. Her green eyes sparkled in the light. I shook my head. No, I just want to get back to a familiar environment. A familiar environment, but not familiar people. As we were talking, a junior colleague rushed over, looking flustered. Dr. Vance, there's someone outside looking for you. Ooh, I was surprised. I didn't know anyone here outside the project team. She said her name is Clara. The wine glass in my hand stopped halfway to my lips. The name, which I had almost forgotten, hit the calm surface of my mind like a depth charge, stirring up murky sediment from the bottom. I thought I must have misheard. Who did you say? Clara, and a man with her, named Ethan. I walked through the noisy ballroom to the hotel lobby. From a distance, I saw the figure I hadn't seen in 2 years. Clara was thinner. She wore a white dress, and her hair was longer, giving her a more worn-out look than I remembered. The man beside her, Ethan, was ghost white, his lips bloodless. He leaned against a suitcase for support, looking like he could collapse at any moment. After 2 years, they were still joined at the hip. The moment she saw me, Clara's eyes lit up. She rushed toward me, her face a complex mask of excitement, grievance, and a bizarrely casual intimacy. Now, I finally found you. She reached for my arm, but I instinctively stepped aside. Her hand froze awkwardly in midair. My eyes scanned between her and Ethan. My voice was as flat as if I were speaking to a stranger. What are you doing here? Clara's eyes instantly turned red. Leo, you're still angry with me, aren't you? That's why you left for 2 years and never even called. I sent you so many messages, and you didn't answer a single one. The divorce. I was just notified by the court. Her voice broke, and tears started to fall. In the past, that look would have been enough to make me soften, to make me give in. Now it was just noise. If you're here to reminisce, don't bother. Ms. Roberts, we're divorced. I made a point of using her maiden name. Clara's face went pale, as if the name itself was a physical blow. Behind her, Ethan gasped for breath as he shuffled forward to support her. He looked at me and forced a weak smile. Now, Dr. Vance, don't blame Clara. It's all my fault. We came here because we need your help. I stared at him, saying nothing. Leo, Clara took a deep breath, as if steeling herself, and pulled me toward the lounge area. Can we talk? Alone? Just for 5 minutes. My first instinct was to refuse, but the lobby was filled with international colleagues, and I didn't want to make a scene. We sat down on a sofa. Before Clara could even speak, the tears started again. Leo, I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have been so close to Ethan, and I shouldn't have ignored your feelings. I've been thinking about it constantly for the past 2 years. Please come back. We can get remarried. I'll never see Ethan again, I promise. I watched her performance, my heart a placid lake. If she thought I was the same man from 3 years ago, easily swayed by a few tears, she was sorely mistaken. Get to the point, I said, cutting through her monologue. She froze, stunned by my coldness. She bit her lip, then finally revealed her true purpose. It's Ethan. He's sick, very sick, and he has a rare heart condition. Aortic dissection, complicated by Marfan syndrome. The doctors back home all say the surgery is too risky, less than a 10% chance of success. They said there are only 5 surgeons in the world who can do this operation, and you have the highest success rate. I finally understood why they had chased me across the world. Not for an apology, not for a reconciliation. They were here to beg me to save a life, to save the life of her precious best friend. The irony was so thick I could taste it. I actually laughed out loud. What's so funny? Clara asked, unnerved by my reaction. I'm laughing at how well-informed you are, I said, leaning back into the sofa. So, you want me to operate on him? Yes. Clara grabbed onto the word like a life raft. Leo, I know you can do it. You're the best. Please, I'm begging you, save him. He's so young. Why should I save him? I asked, looking her dead in the eye. My question left Clara speechless. A flash of panic crossed her face, quickly replaced by a potent surge of self-righteousness. Leo, how can you say that? You're a doctor. Saving lives is your duty. How can you just stand by and let someone die? She stood up, her voice rising, sharp with the unmistakable edge of moral blackmail. A doctor? I repeated the word, finding it amusing. Ms. Roberts, you seem to have forgotten that doctors are human, not gods. And my duty is to serve my patients in my professional capacity. Ethan is not my patient. But you can make him your patient, she pleaded. It would just take one word from you. Money isn't an issue. We'll pay whatever it costs. Money. I raised an eyebrow. Ethan's family is working class, and you haven't had a stable job in years. Where'd you get the money? Or did you think that our past relationship was enough for me to make an exception for him? Clara's face flushed red, then white. Of course she didn't have money. Her biggest leverage, in her mind, was our 3-year marriage. She was banking on the assumption that I still had feelings for her, that I would cave. She still thought I was the same old Leo she could manipulate at will. Just then, Ethan dragged his frail body over to us, leaning on the back of the sofa and panting heavily, his face ashen. Now, Dr. Vance, I know it was all my fault. I shouldn't have gotten between you and Clara. But look at me, I'm a dying man. Can't you find it in your heart to forgive and forget? Just save my life. In the next life, I'll do anything to repay you. He broke into a violent coughing fit, as if he were about to draw his last breath. Clara immediately rushed to his side, patting his back and trying to soothe him, her face etched with pain and worry. The scene was so glaringly familiar, it was almost comical. 2 years ago, when I was burning up with a fever, coughing so hard I could barely breathe, I called her. She told me Ethan was sad about a breakup, and she had to be with him. Now, Ethan was sick, and she had chased me to Europe, begging me, her ex-husband, to save him. What a beautiful, selfless friendship. My patience finally ran out. I stood up and straightened my suit jacket. Ms. Roberts, Mr. Chun, my voice was low but clear. I think you've misunderstood a few things. First, we are divorced. Any decision I make has nothing to do with you, and I certainly don't owe you an explanation. Second, I am a physician on assignment with an international medical aid organization. My schedule is planned down to the minute, and I do not accept private requests. My scalpel serves the objectives of my mission. Mr. Chun is clearly not on that list. Third, I paused, looking at Clara's face, which was now a mask of disbelief. Even if I were to throw all my principles out the window, even if I had nothing better to do, I still wouldn't save him. Because I don't want to. With that, I turned and walked away, not bothering to look back at their devastated faces. Now, Clara screamed behind me. You can't be this cruel. You'll regret this. I didn't turn back. Regret? The single best decision I ever made in my life was signing those divorce papers on that morning 2 years ago and walking away without a second thought. I thought I'd made myself clear enough for them to give up, but I had underestimated Clara's persistence, or rather, her faith in her own allure. Starting the next day, my phone became her personal hotline. The text began with tears and apologies, transitioned to reminiscing about our past, and finally devolved into threats. Leo, remember that restaurant we went to on our first date? I went there yesterday. The owner even asked about you. I truly know I was wrong now. I promise I'll listen to you from now on. Can we go back to how things were? Ethan's condition is getting worse. The doctors say he could. Leo, I'm begging you. Do you really have the heart to do nothing? Leo, don't push me. If you don't agree, I'll go to the hospital you're about to join and tell everyone what a cold-blooded, heartless person you are. We'll see how you feel about your precious career then. I didn't reply to a single message. I just blocked her number. But she always found a way to get through, even managing to get the contact information from my project director, to whom she gave a tearful account of my cruelty and betrayal. Ethan's parents also showed up. A simple, unassuming couple from a rural town. They knelt in the hotel lobby, begging me to save their only son. Suddenly, I was cast as the villain, a cold-hearted doctor who let personal grudges interfere with his duty to save lives. Even Evelyn felt compelled to ask, Leo, are you okay? Those rumors out there. I'm fine, I said, staring out the window. Are you really not going to do anything? Evelyn asked directly. With your skill, the surgery is complex, but you'd have at least an 80% success rate. Anyone else would be looking at less than 50. I turned to face her. Evelyn, let me ask you something. If someone repeatedly hurt you, stripped you of your dignity, and nearly destroyed your life, and now they were dying, and you were the only one who could save them, would you do it? Evelyn was silent for a moment, then shook her head. I don't know. Logically, a doctor's duty is to save people. But emotionally, I don't think I could be that noble. Exactly, I said with a small smile. So, I'm choosing to honor my emotions. But if they keep this up, it could seriously damage your reputation, especially with you about to start your new position back home, Evelyn said, and her concern was valid. In the American medical world, the pressure from public opinion could sometimes be sharper than a scalpel. I thought for a moment, and an idea began to form. Evelyn, didn't you mention that our aid organization's legal team is one of the best in Europe? Her eyes lit up. You're thinking. I'm done wasting words on them, I said, picking up my phone and dialing the project director. Since they seem to think money can solve anything, I'll give them an opportunity to solve this with money. 3 days later, a meticulously worded legal document was hand-delivered to Clara and Ethan's family by a representative from the organization's legal counsel. It wasn't a surgical consent form. It was a private medical services consultation and risk assessment proposal. The report first clarified that, as a member of an international aid organization, I was not permitted to perform any medical procedures outside of my officially assigned duties during my mission. However, considering the humanitarian circumstances and the unique urgency of Mr. Chen's condition, I had consulted with the organization and agreed to offer my services on a personal basis for this specific transnational special request medical procedure, provided it did not interfere with my official duties. Attached to the document was a detailed cost breakdown. Lead surgeons, Leo Vance. Professional services fee, Euro 5,000,000. This was based on my qualifications, the difficulty of the surgery, and the fact that it would take place during my personal leave time. Specialist surgical team assembly fee, Euro 2,000,000. This covered the cost of flying in my preferred anesthesiologist, Evelyn Reed, a perfusionist, and 2 top-tier surgical assistants from around the globe on short notice. Advanced medical equipment and facility rental fee, Euro 1,500,000. This was to lease a state-of-the-art operating room at a top private European hospital, including a next-generation hybrid surgical robot. Special risk and insurance premium, Euro 1,500,000. Given the extreme risk of the surgery, this fee was to secure the maximum possible medical malpractice insurance and to serve as a risk compensation bonus for the team members. The grand total came to Euro 10,000,000, nearly 12 million US dollars. At the end of the document, a sentence was printed in bold type. The total fee must be paid in full prior to the surgery. This quotation is valid for 72 hours. This is a purely commercial service. No negotiation, installment plans, or emotional appeals will be considered. Signing this document signifies acceptance of all terms. When I handed the proposal to our legal team, even the seasoned German lawyer let out a low whistle. Dr. Vance, are you sure about this? For this price, they could buy a small hospital. I'm sure, I said calmly. I'm not selling my skill. I'm selling my principles. And my principles are very expensive. The lawyer shrugged and smiled. Understand, to deal with shameless people, you have to use a language they understand. And money is the most universal language in the world. When Clara received the invoice, she was completely stunned. She tore the beautifully printed report to shreds right in front of the legal representative, screaming, "This is extortion, blackmail. Is Leo insane? How dare he ask for so much money?" The lawyer simply smiled politely and produced an identical copy from his briefcase. Ms. Roberts, tearing up the document changes nothing. We brought a spare. If you find our offer unreasonable, you are free to decline. Our time is also valuable. He then turned and left, leaving Clara and Ethan's family to stare at the document, their faces ashen. 10 million euros. Forget Ethan's working-class family. Even if they sold Clara herself, they couldn't come up with a fraction of that number. They finally realized I wasn't joking. That night, Clara called me again. This time, there were no threats in her voice, only hysterical desperation. "Now, what do you want from me? Are you not happy until you've driven us to our deaths? $12 million. Why don't you just rob a bank?" I put the phone on speaker and set it on the table, continuing to pack my suitcase for the trip home as she screamed. "I gave you a choice," I said coolly, once she had tired herself out. "You can choose to save him, or you can choose not to. It's like ordering from a menu. The dishes and the prices are all listed. Whether you order is up to you. But we can't afford this." "That's a problem for you to solve, not me," I said, neatly folding a dress shirt and placing it in my suitcase. Ms. Roberts, as I recall, you never looked at price tags when you were buying things for Ethan. A watch for a few thousand, a stereo system for 10 times that. You didn't even blink. Why is it that when his life is on the line, you suddenly start worrying about money? There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Finally, her voice came back, choked with tears, almost a plea. Now, we were married, after all. You can't do this to me. Mary, I stopped what I was doing and picked up the phone. Ms. Roberts, when you ran out at 2 in the morning to buy underwear for another man, did you remember we were married? When you left me with a raging fever to go drink with him because he was sad, did you remember we were married? When you turned my home into your private clubhouse for him, did you remember we were married? With every question, her breathing on the other end grew more ragged. You never remembered. In your mind, I was just a tool, a guy who made good money, had a calm temper, and would tolerate all of your nonsense. Now, the tool has a mind of its own and refuses to be used, and you can't handle it, can you? No, that's not it, she stammered. Whether it is or not doesn't matter anymore, I said, zipping my suitcase shut. You have 72 hours. That's your last chance. Good luck. I hung up and blocked her new number, giving her no further opportunity to reach me. The next day, I boarded a flight back to the United States. I left the gloomy European rain behind me for good. 9 life back in the States was smoother than I could have imagined. New hospital, new colleagues, new city. A completely fresh start. My work on the European project earned me immediate respect, and I quickly established myself in the department. The hospital's dean personally approved the allocation of an independent, state-of-the-art hybrid operating room for my team's exclusive use. At my invitation, Evelyn Reed resigned from her position in Europe and joined my team as the chief of anesthesiology. Our professional partnership became even more seamless. Sometimes, after a long day, we'd sit for a while at the coffee shop downstairs from the hospital. So, whatever happened with that invoice? Evelyn asked one day, feigning casualness. No idea, I said, shaking my head. The 72-hour deadline had long passed without a word. I assumed they gave up. Good, Evelyn said. People like that aren't worth your time. I smiled but didn't say anything. That chapter of my life truly felt closed. The pages were filled with ugliness, but they had been turned. However, I had once again underestimated Clara's capacity for chaos. A week later, I was in my office reviewing a patient's CT scans when the dean of medicine knocked and entered, his expression grave. Leo, we need to talk. He placed a printed document on my desk. It was an anonymous letter of complaint. In it, I was painted as a monster, a vengeful ex-husband who abandoned his wife, exploited his medical expertise for personal revenge, and refused to save a dying man. The letter detailed Ethan's condition and accused me of extortion in Europe, framing my actions as a disgrace to the hospital and the entire American medical profession. Attached at the end was a copy of the official quote my lawyer had drafted. This is already blowing up online, the dean said with a sigh. They haven't used your name explicitly, but there are enough details to point directly to you and to this hospital. We're under a lot of pressure. I looked at the letter. The dramatic, manipulative tone was unmistakably Clara's. She was trying to crush me with public opinion. Dean, about this. I started to explain. He held up a hand. You don't have to say a thing. I know your character and your skill. I trust you. I just want to give you a heads up. This might get messy. I nodded. I understand. After he left, I sat in my office for a long time. The trouble had finally come knocking. The online firestorm erupted faster than I had anticipated. An article titled, "A $12 million fee, a dying man's plea, and a doctor's cold heart," went viral across Twitter, Facebook, and several major blogging platforms. The author, claiming to be a friend of the patient's family, spun a heart-wrenching tale of a devoted woman who traveled the world to save her terminally ill best friend, only to be met with a cold-blooded ex-husband who demanded an impossible fee out of spite. In this story, I was the vindictive villain, consumed by jealousy. Clara was the loyal, righteous saint who would do anything for a friend. The post included a photo of Ethan looking frail and close to death in a hospital bed, along with a snapshot of the damning $12 million proposal. Public outrage was immediate and ferocious. What kind of human being does this? Personal issues or not, you don't just let someone die. $12 million? Is he a doctor or a mob boss? The greed is sickening. Someone find this doctor's name and license number. He needs to be ruined. I feel so bad for that poor woman. She married a monster. My name and place of work were quickly doxed. The hospital's phone lines were flooded. My social media accounts were buried under an avalanche of threats and curses. Even in the hallways, I could feel the change in how my colleagues looked at me. I was a pariah in my own hospital. The war against me had begun, silent but devastating. Evelyn was more furious than I was. She tried to go online to set the record straight, but I stopped her. It's pointless, I told her. Right now, people only believe what they want to believe. If you try to defend me, they'll just call you my accomplice. So what do we do? Just let them drag your name through the mud? She demanded, her face flushed with anger. Be patient, I reassured her. Let her have her moment. The bigger the spectacle, the harder the fall. I logged out of all social media, silenced my phone, and threw myself completely into my work. Public opinion could be a weapon, but it couldn't kill a top surgeon who held life and death in his hands. As long as my skills were irreplaceable, I always had a way to win. I just needed the right opportunity, and I knew Clara would deliver it to me herself. The opportunity arrived sooner than I expected. A week later, explosive news hit every major media outlet. The chairman of Sterling Thorne Capital, one of the country's most powerful investment firms, had suffered a sudden, acute aortic dissection. To make matters worse, he had a rare genetic disorder that made his vascular tissues incredibly fragile, increasing the surgical risk exponentially. Top cardiac surgeons from across the nation were called in for consultations, but after reviewing the chairman's scans, every single one of them backed away. No one dared to perform the surgery. The mortality rate was considered to be virtually 100%. While the media speculated on the fate of the financial titan, an unexpected visitor arrived at the hospital. The chairman's only daughter. She walked straight into the dean's office with a medical file and demanded to see me by name. The dean called me to his office. While I walked in, I saw a familiar face. Clara. She was standing beside the sterling heiress, a look of earnest concern on her face. When she saw me, she flinched, but her eyes quickly filled with a triumphant, malicious glee. Your karma is here, Leo, her expression seemed to say. Miss Sterling didn't know who I was. She handed me the file. Your Dr. Vance? I assume you've heard about my father's condition. I don't care how you do it, but you have to save him. Name your price. I took the file and glanced at it. The case was a nightmare, even more complex than Ethan's. But it wasn't impossible. Before I could speak, Clara jumped in. She addressed Miss Sterling in a tone dripping with faux sympathy. Miss Sterling, you should know, this is a doctor who doesn't operate just for money. A dear friend of mine has almost the exact same condition. We were willing to pay, but because of a personal grudge, Dr. Vance refused to help. He even quoted us an outrageous price of $12 million. She was trying to poison the well, to finish me off right in front of the dean. Miss Sterling's brow furrowed. She looked at me now with open suspicion. The dean started to panic, but I raised a hand to stop him. I looked at Clara and smiled. You really think you've won, don't you, Clara? Her confident smirk faltered. I placed the file on the desk and turned to the chairman's daughter. Miss Sterling, first, my deepest sympathies for what your father is going through. Second, I need to correct a mistake in what Ms. Roberts just said. Mr. Chen's condition is not in the same league as your father's. Your father's case is 10 times more complex. And finally, I looked her straight in the eye and said, it's true that I can perform this surgery. In fact, I'm the only one in this country who can. However, I won't do it. The office fell into a dead silence. The color drained from Ms. Sterling's face. Clara, on the other hand, looked ecstatic. Dean, did you hear that? She said, pointing at me triumphantly. He admitted it himself. He refuses to save a patient. This man doesn't deserve to be a doctor. The dean was sweating bullets, but I remained calm and continued speaking to Miss Sterling. The reason I won't do it has nothing to do with money or personal grudges. It's because my surgical schedule is full. I took a piece of paper from my pocket and handed it to her. These are my scheduled operations for the next 3 months. Every name on this list is a patient on the brink of death. Any one of them is in a more critical state than your father. They don't have your father's money or a high-priced PR team to manipulate public opinion. All they have is the hope that I can save them. So, Miss Sterling, you tell me. Which one of these people should I abandon for your father? Or is it that, in your and Ms. Roberts's view, the lives of ordinary people just aren't worth as much? 12 my words landed like a sledgehammer. Ms. Sterling's expression shifted from anger to chalky white. She stared at the densely packed surgical schedule, her lips parted, but no sound came out. The smug satisfaction on Clara's face completely vanished. She had tried to crucify me on a cross of medical ethics, never imagining I would use it to turn the tables on her. Yes, I am a doctor. My duty is to save lives. But my time and energy are finite. Saving one person might mean not being able to save another. And when it comes to life and death, all are equal. Why should the rich and powerful get to cut in line? Of course, I said, looking at the now flustered Ms. Sterling, delivering the final blow. Rules are not set in stone. If you're truly determined for me to operate on your father, there is a way. What is it? She asked, grasping at the last straw. It's simple, I said, pulling out another document Evelyn had prepared for me. During my time in Europe, I offered Ms. Roberts's friend a private medical services contract. I believe the same terms can apply to you. I slid a copy of the invoice across the desk to her. 10 million euros. As soon as the funds are transferred, I can leverage my personal connections to assemble a temporary, world-class international surgical team. We will perform the operation during my personal leave time. This way, it won't consume any of the hospital's public resources or affect the treatment of a single patient on my current schedule. It is the only solution that serves everyone's interests. Ms. Sterling stared at the proposal, her breathing heavy. Beside her, Clara looked as if all the air had been sucked out of her. She slumped into a chair, utterly defeated. She had plotted every move, but she never calculated that I would use her own weapon against her. The $12 million invoice she had used to vilify me had now become the Sterling family's only hope. And I, through it all, had remained on the high ground of both regulation and morality. I wasn't refusing to save a life. I was simply giving them the choice. They could use their money to buy their way to the front of the line, or they could follow the rules, wait their turn, and pray. In the end, Sterling Thorn Capital chose the former. Within 24 hours, 10 million euros were wired to a designated third-party escrow account. 3 days later, I led a team of elite specialists flown in from around the world into the operating room. The surgery lasted 16 hours straight. When I finally walked out and gave the anxious family a thumbs up, the news sent a shockwave through the hospital. The operation, hailed as a textbook-defying medical miracle, made my team and me legends overnight. The tide of public opinion turned just as quickly. The same online mobs that had called me cold-blooded were now praising my unparalleled skill and unwavering principles. The media outlets that had accused me of malpractice were now lauding me for breaking boundaries and achieving the impossible. The $12 million invoice was recontextualized as a fair market valuation for a scarce and elite medical resource, and a testament to the value of top-tier talent. Clara and her viral post became a national joke. She was doxxed and relentlessly attacked by furious netizens, who labeled her a toxic manipulator and a delusional snake for trying to ruin her ex-husband over a so-called friend. I heard that when she and Ethan returned to the States, they couldn't find a single surgeon willing to take his case. With the Sterling surgery as a new benchmark for risk, no one dared to touch such a hot potato. Ethan's condition worsened with each passing day. Much later, someone told me his family had sold their house and borrowed from every relative they had to seek treatment abroad, but he died of an aortic rupture on the way to the airport. As for Clara, her role in manipulating the media and misleading the Sterling family earned her a cease and desist letter from the corporation's legal department. She lost her job, and her reputation was destroyed. One afternoon, I saw her from a distance in the hospital parking garage. She was wearing faded, worn-out clothes, her face gaunt and her eyes hollow. The vibrant woman I once knew was gone. She saw me, too, and tried to turn away, but it was too late. I walked past her without a word, as if she were a complete stranger. Standing by my car was Evelyn, holding 2 cups of coffee. She smiled brightly when she saw me. "Ready to go, Dr. Vance? Let's go home." I took the coffee from her and smiled back. "Yeah, let's go home." The sun was warm, the coffee was hot. My new life was just beginning.